We're told in the newspaper, by the way, that whenever Satanists conduct a sacrifice, they stand around a 9-foot circle. Because it's like, what if the garage is smaller than that?
That's all the devil will accept. 9 or none. Hello, dear folk devils. We are returning today to a topic both beloved and despised by our collective dark heart. Sarah Marshall of You're Wrong About is here to talk about her brand new podcast miniseries from the CBC called The Devil You Know, about the past, present, and future of, that's right, the Satanic Panic. Join us as we wade back into the tall tales that devil spawned the friendship we have today, check out some never-before-heard satanic cult source material from newspapers.com, and try to suss out the meaning of the many moral panics around the Dark Lord himself and his many mortal servants. I'm your host, Chelsey Weber-Smith, and this is American Hysteria. I am satanically, ritually excited for this episode. We have the dark princess herself, Sarah Marshall, here to give us kind of the lowdown on the work that she did for her new podcast, The Devil You Know. And Sarah, I finished the second episode that just came out, and I love it. I fucking love it.
Good promoting, Chelsey. You're doing my job for me. And also, I'm so happy to be here with the sweet dark prince of podcasting themselves, Chelsey Weber-Smith.
That is so nice. Yeah, I was just like, you know, when your friend makes something and you're like, okay, I really hope that this is good.
I do know that. And also when you make something and you're like, boy, I really hope the thing I made is good. No, but I never know. And it's funny because I've been thinking about, like, you know, because having a weekly show, like, your nerves decrease over time and it becomes kind of a rhythm. But I remember like publishing big articles in the past and how, like, if you'd really been working on something for a long time, you would just be like, I have no idea. I've been looking at this for so long. I don't know if it's good or not. And in a way, it's not my business anymore.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's like when, again, you like are trying to write a word a bunch of times or read a word a bunch of times, and it becomes like an illusion of itself.
It's like you write The Devil You Know on a blackboard 350 times.
I feel like that would conjure something.
Well, and you've just been talking about Bloody Mary, and I have to listen to that episode. The thing about this show is that I know it's good, which is nice because there's no anxiety about American hysteria. So our most recent episode was on Michelle Remembers, which, Chelsey, that was the first thing you and I ever talked about in life as human beings. We were like at the Portland Expo, not the Expo Center, the Convention Center. I always switch them.
Yeah.
Because it was AWP and I was meeting you for the first time, and we had to talk about Michelle Remembers.
And we were meeting each other like very vaguely. Like, it's not like we had ever talked before. This was
we were like passing each other something. I think we got introduced by a mutual friend.
Yeah, by Emma Eisenberg.
Ms. Emma Eisenberg, author of The Third Rainbow Girl.
Check it out. Yep. So it was a very cool moment. And we sat on the cement stairs with our young bodies before that would hurt to sit on for a while. And we just really got into the most batshit book I had ever read.
Yeah.
Michelle Remembers.
Yeah. And this episode is one of the ones that I really can't believe happened because I got to talk to family members of Larry and Michelle.
Yeah.
And got to hear about just what the whole thing was like from the backstage area, which is something I've literally wondered about for like 15 years.
Seriously.
You know?
Yes.
And there's such a thing where it's like, if you're just a person, you can't just go up to people and ask them about stuff. Or I feel you can't. Some people feel you can, like, you know, strangers who tell me to tie my shoes, they probably could. But when you're doing it in the service of journalism or, you know, other kind of fact-finding areas, you're in a social role where you have to ask people stuff. And I I don't know. And I also I love that episode because the two women I got to talk to were just amazing people, I think. And we deserve to know their voices too.
Yeah, they were so wonderful. And I felt like you handled it with so much grace and kindness and interest. And it was so cool.
Thank you. I just love them.
And just for anybody who is lost in this moment, who is like, what's Michelle Remembers?
Wow.
Do you want to just give us the real short version, Sarah?
I would love for you to, because I feel like I've been doing that all over town lately. I want to hear the Chelsey version. Yeah.
Okay. So Michelle Remembers was a book that came out in the year, Sarah?
1980.
Yeah. Okay.
Congdon and Lattez, a very new publishing house, needed to make money, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. Just in time for Reagan to be welcomed with a severe case of ritual abuse. So basically what happened is this woman, Michelle Smith, goes to see a Catholic therapist, Lawrence Pastor, and through that relationship, he starts to help her through, a version of hypnotherapy to recover a bunch of repressed memories from her childhood about her ritual abuse by a satanic cult that included her own mother. And it is
Which he very much leads her to conclude. He's like, it sounds like Satanist. And she's like, yeah, that's the ticket and stuff like that.
It was definitely an invention, more so of Lawrence Pastor, but it was kind of a co-creation by both of them. Right. And it really was a horrible, traumatic thing for Michelle, meaning the therapy was horrible and traumatic.
And it is also a horrible, traumatic book. And I know what you're saying, right? If you haven't read it, you're probably like, but surely this book has some camp value. I mean, the cover is awesome, and it is. But Chelsey, I just feel like we initially had this bond because we had both read this horrible book.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about the trauma of just the reading experience?
Yeah, I mean, it's like half trauma, half absolute disbelief that anyone could have even come up with something this gruesome and sensational. I mean, we're talking about like, ripping apart and eating kittens in front of Michelle and putting her in a giant devil statue and making her sacrifice babies.
I just believe you can't find that many people in the world who would literally rip apart and eat a kitten and throw the kitten pieces onto a little girl who they had placed into a coffin, all while apparently like stone sober, because you would have to be at this level of organization. And also in a cemetery that there's a bunch of houses around. It's like people do awful things all the time. And I think a lot of what we're going to talk about today and what my CBC show, The Devil You Know, is about the satanic panic. It's not that we were fools to believe that people could be this awful to each other, I think. It's just that we created a legend that allowed the awfulness to take a form that we felt more equipped to deal with. Yeah. Oddly.
I know, really oddly, right? Because it's like, again, as you and I talk about all the time, the real dangers to children are usually people within their own homes, which I guess in this case, the mom, which of course isn't as common as other members of the family harming children.
And also, if you do have an abusive mom, then like there are much better odds she did it as part of, some form of organized Christianity.
Right.
As opposed to Satanism, because you can worship God and still abuse your children so much. And that's a key fact about America in the late 20th century into today too. Really all of America. Yeah. Let's just say that.
Yeah. And I mean, you have this extreme abuse happening from this unbelievably evil organization that then becomes this easy scapegoat to avoid what's really happening and how it needs to be combated in these ways that are much harder. It seems non-intuitive to be like, oh, it's easier to battle a bunch of Satanists all over the country, but it is easier than like thinking about having to address people in your community about their behavior, because there's just a sense that how do we even begin to do something so difficult as that.
And it's also harder to get people to care about what you have to say, even more so in the past, I think. If the person you're accusing is, part of a regular old church and worships Jesus, because if you're like, I was abused by a Satan worshiper, then the police would be like, well, heck, I mean, we know that that's the type of person who would commit abuse. But if it's one of the elders at your church or someone protected by them, they're going to be like, no, Denise.
Yeah.
I'm sure he didn't understand what he was doing and it's all a misinterpretation. Have another cookie. It's my impression of a police officer in the 80s.
Yeah. And I mean, it really does the trick in that way of pushing this evil that, and I hate saying evil, but this, this really extreme, harmful behavior onto these fake characters that are these like archetypes of ultimate evil. And so it just becomes easier to digest for sure for the common Christian in this country, which is the majority of people in this country.
Right. And in the 80s, like even more so than now, because I think things have become much more, I don't know, the ends have populated and the middle has gotten a bit more sparse. But in the 80s, I mean, The Simpsons is kind of a good example of this, actually, where like, I have no idea what it's like today. But for at least the first 10 years of The Simpsons went to church. And that was like, there were a lot of plots revolving around church in some way or another. Because even if you didn't really believe that much in kind of white 1980s America, you would probably still there was a very good chance you would still be a churchgoer.
Yeah.
Because like pretend Christianity was sort of like the thing to do socially.
Right.
At this time, especially.
Yeah. And I mean, that makes sense because there was a huge resurgence of evangelicalism with Reagan and with all the manipulation by people like Jerry Falwell and Pat Robertson.
Right. And Reagan like joining hands at the urinal with evangelicals.
Yeah, exactly. And, it was really a time when evangelicals were engaging their followers in politics for the first time. I mean, it had led up to it in the 70s, but really the 80s is when those two things became connected to each other, where it just didn't used to be that way.
Right. And I think that's something that it's hard to remember today, even if you do know that it used to be like that. And that if you, say you're like a fully formed adult who was born in around the year 2000, you would have no reason to know this necessarily, that Christianity in the United States used to be more of a moderating influence on politics than a force that had fully, basically gotten in bed with conservatism.
Yep.
Conservatism. What would be conservatism? I think that's when you conserve stuff. Anyway, and so, that now it's kind of, the same way that there is meant constitutionally to be a separation of church and state, there, I think, also has been historically at least more of a kind of shared understanding that politics are politics and religion is religion, despite the demands that religion might make and vice versa. But at this point, there's no illusion of a separation anymore.
Right.
And I feel like the Satanic Panic welcomed that in. And anyway, all that's to say that Michelle Remembers is interesting too, because it's a story, but it's a story that was also treated as a document that had great evidentiary value when the Satanic Panic really took off in the 80s, because people could point to it as proof that there were all these satanic cults running around sacrificing children and sexually abusing the ones they didn't sacrifice, and that this book was proof that it had all happened. But if you actually read it, one of the things that's striking is that in the back half, especially, Michelle spends so much time begging her therapist to let her stop and saying that she can't think of anything else. And he's like, no, Michelle, you got to keep going, babe. And eventually, every time she comes up with something, because the position that he puts her in is she has to keep telling the story or he will leave her.
Right. And
so it's like a reverse Scheherazade or something.
Yeah. Remember those old Maury episodes where they would bring someone on who had a irrational fear, and then in the middle of the interview, they'd like run out. Like it was like a woman who was afraid of cotton balls, and then someone would run out and chase her with cotton balls. And we were just like...
I don't remember that, but that sounds about right for 90s TV.
It happened quite a bit.
Speaking of the Satanic Panic again, as so many things connect to it, 80s and 90s daytime TV was like a Roman gladiator show. We were just like, whose life are we going to ruin today? I can't wait. Let's think about how ugly people are He's ugly. She's ugly. They're all ugly. I'm smarter and prettier than everyone else, and also less of a slut. I'm perfect.
Yep, that's it. Yep, it was. And we were all just like, what am I going to watch when I stay home from school sick today when my parents are at work?
Something that will give me a new fear that I will carry with me for years, or something about Oak Island.
Or it will instill a new prejudice in my young mind.
I've probably talked about this on the show before, but I remember one time watching something probably on Animal Planet. They did a lot of dumb alleged edutainment in the late 90s about like this woman was tossing and turning, and then she looked up and she saw an alien dog. And the premise of the special was, have aliens made contact through their pets?
Wow. Oh, God. Yeah. And I mean, we know that alien stuff is also really connected to the hypnotherapy, memory therapy stuff we're talking about, too.
So we're gonna talk about that for a second today. Let's inevitably, because what I proposed to you is basically for us to just kind of talk satanic panic, and also for me to give you a little bit of a satanic panic. What I'm calling satanic panic ends in pieces, because you know when they have like that thing of bacon that's like bacon ends in pieces, and it's like all the little bits of bacon that didn't make it, you know?
Yeah.
It's cheaper.
It's cheaper, y'all. You just get it here. Yeah.
That's my bargaining tip. Buy the bacon ends in pieces and just have a bacony night. Also, this is from my friend and friend of You're Wrong About Candace Opera. This is via her friend, our mutual friend, Ricky, which is that if your freezer is full, have a party where you eat just all the stuff from your freezer.
It's a great idea.
And it can be a party of one person, but you know, whatever. I just think that's genius. I've thought of that so many times since I heard about it.
Especially if like your power's out and you're like, all my shit's going to melt. It's like everybody come over and have like a candle party and we'll eat this bag of peas together.
Yes. Let's have salmon and peas and a lot of popsicles. And that's the party.
Otter Pops. Yeah.
But something, because you and I were texting this morning about episode 2 of The Devil You Know, and this wild thing of like talking to Michelle's sister about like, what was your childhood actually like, and what was your family like, and what was it, just all of it, any of it is just, you know, endlessly fascinating. And also then to be someone who had to live with this legacy that a sibling created for your family, and to be sort of known in this way, or to be camouflaged behind this layer of the legend that was created around your family and your mother as well. And we were talking about just how strange journalism is, because it feels like you suddenly you're talking to the people who have become part of a legend for me as well, where it occurred to me, you know, talking to you about this, that I've been thinking of the Satanic Panic as like an era of history. And so to me, talking to people who were living through it and watching it be created and trying to stop it from being created, sometimes just feels so odd. But then that, you know, in 10 or 20 years, people will be talking to those of us right now who are witnessing and experiencing the spread of, you know, kind of the Satanic Panic, 27 years later in Derry kind of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I loved when you referenced it.
Thank you.
That made me really happy.
All my it references are for you. It really is it though, right? You deal with it.
100%.
It takes what is, you know, what's Pennywise up to? Just taking a big snooze down in the sewers for a while there?
I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah.
We don't
shopping.
know.
He's in Saint-Tropez.
With Leo, yeah.
Oh, those poor girls.
Yeah.
And it made me think that, you know, what I really want is for colleges to have like a Satanic Panic department, or at least a minor that you can do. Because to me, it's as huge an area of history as like the Renaissance or something, you know, because just the directions these stories go in, the way that every time I go to, for example, our favorite website, newspapers.com, and dig like a quarter inch, I find like 10 new things that I never heard of before that were part of this overall phenomenon, where it was so big that I don't even think I've begun to chart it. You know, it's like the ocean.
Well, and it's like my impression of your show so far is that you are looking underneath the stories that any of us who have, scholarly relationships to the satanic panic and all the beats. It's like you're going underneath that and finding these like smaller but very human stories that make up a tapestry that it has become invisible at this point because it's not the beats that we continue. It's not McMartin. It's not Michelle Remembers, but it's connected to those.
Yeah, it's like hiding behind those. Yeah, there are so many cases that we've never heard of. And I want to talk to you about at least one of those today.
I would, love that.
Because basically, I just went and kind of looked up angles that I've always found intriguing and sort of found just some old articles that were both skeptical and very credulous and kind of pointing toward cases that I had never heard of before. Well, one that I'd heard of, but very quickly I found things that I'd never heard of before that kind of opened up new questions about kind of how the satanic panic functioned in people's minds and in our legal system. And all that's to say that I loved doing this show, and I hope that it only causes there to be more work on the satanic panic and more podcasts about it, more explorations of it, because the history is so huge and so fascinating. And I just think we should all talk about it so much.
Yeah. And I mean, I think too that, you talk about it as an era, and in addition to it being an era, it's a recurring problem for the last 2,000 years, more than that.
Yeah, it's like a tide. Yeah, and the sort of moral panic cycle within cultures and both at a national and a local scale is really interesting too, because we're living in these kind of different patterns that are occurring, where we live and where we call home, and also in the kind of country whose culture we're a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. More after this. And now, back to the show.
Well, let me just take you some of these articles that I looked at. Let's see.
From what else but
newspapers.com.
Newspapers.com.
We love you. Not sponsored, just a fan.
Yep. Miranda did make a newspapers.com shirt for my birthday.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I have the merch. I've got the merch. Don't sue us.
So we're going to start off with a classic credulous newspaper article. This is from the Abilene Reporter News, November 20th, 1986. The headline is Human Sacrifices by Satanists Probed. So already from the headline, you kind of, have a sense that the newspaper is taking this pretty seriously. Yeah. Although this is an AP story. So
there you go. Reputable.
Why don't you just read this to me?
Would you like me to?
Just give me your best cold read. Yeah.
Allegations of human sacrifice by Satan worshippers are being investigated by authorities here, although the sheriff admits there is no hard evidence to support the claims. Quote, "We do not have a specific crime that we can point to or somebody who is reported missing." Sheriff Leo Samangio said, quote, "We are looking at," it's a typo.
"We are looking at our statements, ARE."
Yeah, great job, everybody. Come on. We are looking at statements from people who used to be involved in Satanism or who know others who are involved and who claim that human sacrifices are being conducted in the El Paso area.
Or who know someone who knows someone who knows someone who used to be involved. Can you give this guy a funny voice for us?
Sure. Okay. Where are we? El Paso?
Are you going to do a Tommy Lee Jones?
I couldn't. Even though we don't have any hard evidence yet, there is no reason not to believe them, he told the El Paso Times Tuesday.
Let's unpack that for a moment.
Yeah.
Even though we do not have any hard evidence yet, there is no reason not to believe them, aside from the thing I just said earlier in this sentence.
And who is them?
The people who know someone.
Who knows someone who knows someone.
Yeah.
Because all they're investigating are rumors, right? At this point, is what he's saying.
Well, and so this is from 1986. And so the ways that these stories are coming in are interesting. And honestly, if I were reading this and if I had no internet with which to do additional research, I would be like, oh, that's not great.
No.
Because what the sheriff says, I'll read this section.
Okay.
Some former Satanists, Samaniego said, told sheriff's detectives that infants who are born to Satanists were sacrificed in rituals. Investigators were told that transient adults sometimes were sacrificed. But who cares about that? We'll never mention it again.
Yeah. Which also helps Sarah in there being no evidence, is like, it was just some transient adult who we don't know and we'll never know.
Who the police aren't too concerned about anyway, one would imagine.
Exactly.
One former Satanist who said she attended weekly rituals for 2 years is among those who told detectives about the alleged activity. Some of the information concerning human sacrifices surfaced at a meeting in October attended by the former Satanist, 2 city police detectives, and an El Paso Times reporter. The meeting was arranged by Watch, an organization devoted to educating people about cults and the occult.
I bet they were fun.
The former Satanist agreed to be interviewed on the condition that she not be identified. During a 2-year period, she told the Times she witnessed 3 human sacrifices, including newborn infants. She said mothers volunteered to sacrifice their babies, which... It was considered a high honor by the mothers, she said.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Sexual orgies and animal sacrifices were part of some of the other rituals, she said, but human sacrifices were for special satanic holidays, such as Halloween.
Oh my God. Halloween.
Whenever Satanists conduct a sacrifice, whenever, Chelsey, they stand around a 9-foot circle, has to be 9 feet, with a pentagram inside the circle and walk around it while chanting. A high priest or priestess who officiates stabs the victim with a long, sharp knife. After the victim is killed, Satanists drink the victim's blood. The whole thing lasts about 30 minutes, she said. After the ritual, the leaders pour some kind of chemical on the body to decalcify the bones and burn the remains. The ashes are picked up and saved for different rituals.
Stupid.
Tell me your thoughts and feelings, Chelsey.
Well, I mean, it's like around every turn is a reason why there is no physical evidence at all.
Right. He's like, wait, don't, before you ask questions.
Yeah. And also it is kind of that thing we were talking about with spontaneous human combustion, about how it's really hard to completely incinerate a body in the bones without having a special...
Right, we were just talking about that.
A special kiln.
Without being able to cremate, or without have someone who's been in ketosis, which I've never heard of Satanists selecting victims for.
No, not either.
If that hypothesis is true anyway.
Another thing that stuck out to me was this... And again, something you and I have both talked about and people who talk about the satanic panic often zero in on is this obsession with the mother as the figure who is like willfully giving her children away. And it's such an honor for her like vanity and her, to gain some kind of power and prestige. Like it's just so easy for mothers to fall into that trap or something. It's offensive to mothers. Yeah.
Well, and also that, to be in America in the 80s and now as a mother is often to be working against overwhelming odds, in terms of being able to raise a baby in a safe and healthy way. And that really you're the one who has to protect your child or your children against a lot of dangers. And one of them is the fact that the government just does not care to give you adequate resources to be able to do it without sacrificing quite a lot.
Well, there you go.
Sometimes too much, I don't know. And that's one of the things that tears it for me, where it's like, I've seen babies be sacrificed. And I'm like, I can believe, I can imagine if we're not talking about huge numbers, like, sure, people do awful things. I can see it maybe like someone somewhere. And then they're like, and the mothers are super psyched about it. And it's like, no, because like the worst cases of like maternal child abuse and neglect I can think of that I've read about, and like, God knows I'm just another white woman who reads true crime, but like you can read a lot of it if you put your mind to it. And the worst thing that I can think of is, as a mother, if you abuse your child and they die, or if you have a partner who abuses your child and they die and you cover that up. That's, actually when in sort of the history of finding baby does who we don't have an identity for and we don't know how they died. There have been quite a few cases where it's turned out they've been killed by someone in the family, Yeah.
Yeah.
And this does feel like a way of shifting the blame away from the government, they should be protecting people and supporting them enough to be able to raise children safely. And B, the fact that, as you've pointed out, even within this episode, that, danger toward babies, just like other children, often comes from within the home.
Yeah.
That we're going to point the finger at Satan and say that, if you are a mother who does this, it's not a crime of lack of resources or of coercion, as it so often is, but it's just a crime of like enthusiastic participation.
Right. And I mean, at this time, we also have, the pushback on second wave feminism and all of the, gains of women and the ability for women to start to imagine lives outside the home and participate in the world in that way. And then, of course, we start to see the daycare workers demonized as Satanists because they're the stand-in parent and the mother is delivering them to this cult of daycare workers. And I think that
they're a challenge to the nuclear family.
Yes, exactly.
Or perceived as such.
Absolutely. And from there, what I see are these real issues that are, whether or not they're rightfully causing outrage or rightfully causing anxiety in the culture, but these issues are happening and we're taking them like the real thing and we're just like blowing it up to like a Marvel movie level of sensationalism. So
we're like a Conjuring sequel level.
That's a better metaphor. I've never seen a Marvel movie in my entire life.
That's impressive, because I think at a certain point they just start piping them into your home,
Yeah. Well, I don't know how I've done it. Ask me how.
They project it on the ceiling above your bed and are like, you watch this, watch Iron Man. He doesn't want to love, but he does. He can't even help it.
Like in A Clockwork Orange, they're just holding my eyes open and forcing me to watch. No offense, Marvel people.
Do you have a Halloween costume this year, by the way? I know this is coming out after Halloween, but you and I are talking during Halloween week, and this is appropriate for the topic.
Yeah, I am doing Eddie from Rocky Horror because it is the 50th anniversary.
Oh my God.
So yeah.
How does it feel to be embodying Eddie?
It's been really nice. I've been really working on getting all of the little parts of the vest together, the painted back and all of the chains and the studs and I lined it with the leopard print. So, it's been fun. It's been fun. I'm looking forward to it. We're going to be in New Orleans. And that's great because you and I have been in New Orleans for Halloween and we had a lovely time as well.
We had the best time.
Yeah.
What were you wearing that time?
I got that really weird king's outfit. I was like being an asshole king.
Oh, yeah. You were just being a king. I really liked that.
It was my best.
Yeah.
It was a cool costume for sure.
And I was dressed as Poison Ivy, obviously.
That's right. Yeah. It was very fun.
It was really great. Yeah. So I also like that we're told in the newspaper, by the way, that whenever Satanists conduct a sacrifice, they stand around a 9-foot circle. Because it's like, what if the garage is smaller than that,
Yeah, it's very
What
specific.
if they don't have exactly 9 feet of width?
That's all the devil will accept. 9 or none.
Right? It's like, how technical is the devil in all this? Is the devil like more of a like... God, I just heard the best, to me, like a very religiously deep joke on the Drew Carey show. Can I tell you?
Yeah.
This show?
Yes, of course.
This is my belief system. The Drew Carey show is incredible. And it's all being put on YouTube finally. It's never been released on DVD because it used a lot of expensive music. And for that reason, it's never been adequately studied. But I think it's kind of a masterpiece just in terms of like playing with format and having fun, you know, because I feel like the standard thing for a sitcom is to like figure out the thing that you are and then gradually get bored and miserable. And the Drew Carey show just got more and more surreal. And there's an episode where Lewis becomes a religious zealot.
Okay.
Because, why not? And he's trying to save everyone from hell. And Drew Carey is like, God doesn't want you to go to hell. He just wants you to show up and do your best, like a hippie teacher.
Yes, that's nice. I wish that was a more pervasive worldview for sure.
God is just like your art teacher who like plays Emerson, Lake and Palmer on the boombox in the studio and tells you to open the door if you're working with rubber cement.
And doesn't get mad at you if you come to class high, but just takes you in a different room and says you can't do this anymore.
Yeah. And just is like, why don't we steer you away from the paper cutter today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Why don't we make a me eye? Anyway, so that's my belief system. And I don't believe in Satan. I think that, if historically, to get into it briefly, Satan is kind of a corruption of a classical trickster god.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that Christianity felt the need at a certain point to turn the trickster figure into a figure of evil.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I've been reading the Bible lately. That's
not
what
to
I've
brag.
been doing. Not to brag.
But yeah, I heard there's good stuff in there. What have you been reading?
I'm all the way into Exodus now. I'm actually listening to an audio version of it, which is helping me digest it better.
Yeah. Who's reading it? Are they good?
I don't know. Some guy. He's good. Yeah. He's got like a booming voice, so it's really good for the vibe for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's been continuously striking to me. I mean, one, how batshit it is. Like, and again, we're in the Old Testament, but it's like, just like baffling to me that this is the foundation.
It's like the Drew Carey show in later seasons. They're just throwing all kinds of stuff in there.
Yeah. And it is just bizarre to me because it is just, God is so mean in the Old Testament.
I know. He's the worst. Satan makes good points compared to him. He's like, what if Job only likes you because you gave him stuff? What if you took it all away? And then God does that. And Satan, in my imagination, is like, I didn't think you'd do that.
Well, it's like he's tricking God.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Because God is easy to trick, like an angry dad,
Yeah. Yeah, it's just petty and just he didn't give anyone any rules. That's what I'm so struck by is he's like, these people are so evil. And I'm like, well, you didn't tell them how to not be evil. Like nobody knows.
He's like, shut up.
Don't bring logic into this.
These people didn't imagine my needs. And it's like, well, you never told them, for God's sake. For you's sake.
Are you a codependent narcissist?
Yeah, I know. You really, having gone through TikTok therapy, when you read some of the classic God stories, you're like, dump him.
Dump him, yeah.
He created everyone to live for 900 years and then got pissed that things were crowded. Seems like your fault.
Yeah, and also you made everybody. And like right before the flood, he's like, realizes everyone aside from Noah is like, he's like, every human thought and action is evil. Like, he's like, they don't have like a single thought that isn't evil. And it's like, well, okay.
Why did you do that then?
Why did you do this?
It sounds like you hate you.
You hate you.
This sounds like a you problem.
Mm-hmm.
God.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe it is just the universe trying to experience itself by manifesting, in like a Gnostic sense, by manifesting this being that can, just experience.
Well, don't you think that if you're trying to survive in a very hand-to-mouth way and it's at like the dawn of agriculture and natural disasters are always coming along and killing people for no reason, that it makes sense to sort of have the worldview of someone who has an abusive partner who's in charge of the weather?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that really does like remind me of this thing I like to tell myself about the satanic panic of the, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. It's a long time. But that I could have very easily, I feel confident that if I was the right age, would have bought into it. Completely, because famously I was an Illuminati truther that definitely thought there was like, I wasn't like Christian ever, but I was like, there are evil forces potentially within. And I still believe that to a degree.
And that when you're younger, you have more of a desire maybe to find a sort of this, because, this is how it works with QAnon too, I think. And it's the basis of so much adolescent fiction for a reason. This is basically the premise of Harry Potter, right? That like the world, is not the world. It's just the dressing on top of the real world.
Yes.
And when you get to like the real stuff that's happening, where you have a very important role to play, interestingly, you will understand and everyone else will be stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And this is also like it's
like the Matrix.
Yeah. And like when I believed in these things, and it wasn't something that like I believed into the point of my life being totally disrupted or anything. But, there was a sense for me that like, okay, Bohemian Grove, I'm learning about that. I'm learning that all of these, millionaires, billionaires, all of these politicians and news people and businessmen, they all meet up together. And yeah, I'm like, look at all these evil things happening around like the war in Afghanistan and Iraq.
Right. And we know that horrible old men get together and make deals. They just probably mostly do it in a room or in a car in a parking lot.
And they do it at Bohemian Grove. They just don't have the ridiculous dressing that they
just don't have the devil there or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or it's like, it's not a cult. It's just, I don't know, or I think that like, because within the Satanic Panic, some of the, the kind of 80s coverage does raise the question of like, well, some people had to be doing some stuff, right? Like there had to be teenagers who were spray painting pentagrams and killing animals occasionally. And, also if I, as an individual person, want to believe in Satan and kill someone and say it's about Satan, then you can say that's a satanic murder. It's not,
Sure,
it's just that I'm not doing it in an organized way as part of a group that's secretly running the United States, which is where this theorizing gets in a few years.
Yeah. And just like what we were saying about the 80s being like this overblown version of things that were really happening, you can say that about the Illuminati because we know that there are people behind the scenes making decisions that affect all of our lives and affect geopolitics and everything about
absolutely true.
Our world. And so it's not that far of a step to just apply some supernatural forces to that because it feels that big. It feels bigger than just human beings creating atrocities. You're like, how can human beings do this? Maybe there's an external force that needs to be added so that we can handle that truth or something. That's how it felt for me, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's like we need, I don't know, that like the way things actually work in the world, as far as I can tell, is that people do have kind of cabals, often that really are just, a board of trustees on a corporation somewhere. But, people enter into conspiracies that involve screwing the majority of the population in order to improve their own lives and get some more money most of the time. And that they're not stealing our souls or they're not collecting souls and they're not, waging a war with God. They probably think they're glorifying God and they probably, go to the country club every weekend after church.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so this leads us to another newspapers.com feature, which is that in 1985, June 21st, 1985, the Akron Beacon Journal published a special section called Satanism in Ohio, because there were so many allegations of Satanism in Ohio that they needed a section called that, especially in the Akron area. And I just find that thrilling. But really like all over Ohio. And something that occurs to me just off the top of my little head as a reason why Satanism kind of like dug in, and within the Satanic Panic, like, Oregon, for example, is a state that you hardly ever hear about in the context of the Satanic Panic. And of course it touched it. And there were, therapists who were practicing recovered memory therapy. There were legal proceedings that involved allegations of Satanism, but just like it didn't take hold and flourish in a way that it did in other places. And Ohio seems to have been one of those places. And it occurs to me that Ohio is a place that has been screwed many times for many decades by multiple forces, right? Where, I did an episode of You're Wrong About with Harmony Colangelo about the Cleveland balloon alleged disaster. Or really did it all kind of go okay? But just this idea that like, to speak again of the Drew Carey show, I guess, Cleveland is like, a city where famously a river caught on fire multiple times. I want to say 13 times the Cuyahoga River caught fire because it was so polluted. And who polluted it? Not Satanists, but like if you're living in a place where the water isn't even safe to drink for multiple reasons because of multiple industries that, came to town long enough to destroy the world you lived in and then collapsed and took your job as well. Like, wouldn't it be great if Satanism was kind of behind some stuff?
Yeah.
Is that out there to you, or does that make some sense?
No, that makes complete sense to me. Absolutely. It's like it could go either way. It's like it could make you want to believe in Satan, or it could make you be like, I know this isn't fucking Satan. I know exactly who this is. It's like Balcor or something like that.
Right. It's DuPont mainly.
Yeah.
So speaking of Ohio, here's an article. This is from March 14th, 1987, the Cincinnati Enquirer. Satanism in huge letters. Public fascination and fear grow over the topic of devil worship. This is by Jim DeBross. And I also want to point out that if you look at media, especially in newspapers during the Satanic Panic, even in the early days, you will find skeptics. It'll often be in a local paper. It won't be something that got picked up by the AP wire and passed around endlessly the way that like a really cool looking crime did, or the way that, maybe evidence of satanic crime really being a problem did. But there were people questioning this from the very beginning and all throughout, and I think that going to these sources and seeing that too just helps, because there's no time in history that's a monolith. And it helps me, at least, to be reminded that there always have been and always will be people who are pointing out the things that don't make sense.
And, one of those people was Dana Scully.
Yeah.
Because I just watched an episode recently of the X-Files for the Bloody Mary episode, because there's just like a Bloody Mary scene in it. But everything around that was about these rumors of this satanic cult killing all these teenagers. And it was, Scully who kept being like, I have the report from Kenneth Lanning.
Yep.
Like literally.
A real person, a real report.
Yeah, like she's using a real FBI report to try to debunk this stuff. And, of course, we have Mulder fighting back against that. And she just holds strong the whole time. And of course, it turns out not to be Satanists, but another totally out there explanation. But, I was really impressed that the X-Files, which you could have seen really going either way, went the right way, because it was still early 90s.
Right.
It was still going on hardcore. So I felt like I was proud of that from the X-Files.
Oh, yeah. And very much, especially in rural America.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also that it's, the same way that Designing Women had an episode that provided a lot of useful information about AIDS, because it was 1986. You had to take that where you could get it.
Absolutely. More after this. And now, back to the show.
So here are some cases that this mentions as kind of support people cite for the idea that Satan is at large in Ohio.
Okay.
July 8th, 1985, Lucas County deputies began digging up sites all over Spencer Township near Toledo when informants claimed that as many as 75 people slaughtered by devil worshippers are buried there. Deputies find nothing except the wrath of township residents who want an end to the digging. February 14th, 1987, a pair of severed legs are found behind a church in rural Franklin County, Indiana.
Whoa.
The legs are identified as those of Monica Denise Lehman, a 21-year-old Price Hill woman said to be a member of a satanic group. Said by who? Later, police find an altar, black candles, animal bones, and other evidence of devil worship in the trailer home of two suspects in the murder. The suspects say they cut off the legs because the corpse wouldn't fit into the back of their Pinto station wagon.
Yes.
Tell me what you think about that story.
Okay. Well, I can understand how you could put those pieces together if you were in the middle of a panic around Satanists. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, all the elements are there. But then the perpetrators are explaining pretty rationally why the body was in the condition that it was in, or, at least the legs when they were found. But instead of just taking that explanation at face value, they're going to include the fact that this trailer has an altar, quote unquote, which we don't know what that means. That could have been, a lot of people have black candles. A lot of people like to listen to death metal. A lot of people are part of a culture like that might have these like quote unquote occult items as part of a collection. And then I don't know, who doesn't collect animal bones? I sure do.
That's a great point. Also, does that mean that they had KFC earlier? It could.
It could be that. It could be chicken bones.
Yeah.
But, I think, again, I always like to really push the fact that none of us from our, high windows now looking down necessarily wouldn't have believed these things were at least happening. Maybe we would have been incredulous about certain aspects of it, but it would have been hard to be aware enough and have the right kind of knowledge and the right kind of skepticism to completely reject all of this alleged evidence that is being shot at you like every single day. And I imagine it was hard for law enforcement as well. There's no excuse for anything wrong, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, I can see how this happened very clearly. And it's not because everyone was fucking dumb. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and then let me read you another Cincinnati Enquirer article about this case. This is from September 16th, 1987.
Okay.
And the title is Prosecutor: Anger, Occult Led to Killing. This is by Irene Wright. Hamilton, Ohio, a mixture of anger, occult, black magic, and Satanism is what evidence will show as reasons why John Lee Fryman killed a Price Hill woman, a prosecutor said Tuesday. And so according to the prosecutor, his name is John Holcomb, it was premeditated. He decided he was going to kill her. He brought her to his trailer and then killed her in front of his satanic altar. The prosecution says Fryman took Lehman to the sorcery room in his mobile home. Again, this is the prosecution's theory. And so I have not dug deep enough to find anything suggesting the idea that did they make this up? What is a sorcery room? How much room do you have for a sorcery room in a mobile home, frankly?
Right.
Would it be one of the bedrooms or a large closet, or would you hang up a sheet?
Well, it needs to at least fit a 9-foot pentagram. We know that.
Right. And you don't have room for that. So we have conflicting reports of what you have to do. Quote, it was a black painted room with the tombstone altar in the mobile home.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. He had her read a satanic incantation painted on a door, Holcomb said. They're not getting their deposit back. While she was doing that, he shot her in the back of the head with a .25 automatic. But the thing is, Fryman lived there with his, quote, living companion, Beverly Cox. And then I'll read you the rest of the article because this is just interesting, I think, from a legal perspective.
Okay.
Cox, who has been granted immunity on a complicity charge and will testify against Fryman, was described by Fryman's attorney, F. Joseph Chavone, I'm probably saying that wrong, as the person who shot Lehman and the service station manager. So Fryman is saying, no, actually, my girlfriend did it while I was away, conveniently.
Wow.
The defense said evidence will show that Fryman left Lehman at the mobile home February 9th and went to Middletown to buy marijuana. When he returned, Beverly Cox was hysterical. This is his lawyer talking. She said it was an accident. Blood was on the floor. The attorney quoted Fryman as saying, don't worry, I'll take care of everything. So when they're both in jail, letters exchanged by Fryman and Cox in Butler County Jail convinced Fryman to plead guilty in order to relieve Cox of alleged sexual abuse and pressure in jail, Chavone said. Fryman's, and this is again the lawyer talking, Fryman said, bring me a quarter pounder and a Coke and I'll make a statement. Fryman confessed to the crime and asked that the statement be shown to Cox.
So what I'm getting a sense of here is that the woman who was murdered by the companion of, what's his name?
Fryman.
Yeah, the companion of Fryman. And she wanted him to take the fall. So he came up with this extremely sensational story in order to take the heat off of her. Am I getting this?
Yeah, that's his attorney's argument. And not that, I mean, look, this is also why I would be vulnerable to the satanic panic. I kind of think everyone's telling the truth all the time. And again, I'm often wrong because people lie, they don't always lie and they don't lie in the most organized way. And they're not lying every time they say something that's inconvenient to you. But it happens, especially if it's been incentivized. But I do find it personally, like in my own brain, to me, it's very reasonable to think that if you are trying to take all of the heat for a crime that, perhaps your girlfriend was involved in more than you would like, and, the police to think she was, for you to be like, yeah, I killed her all by myself. And also I did it satanically.
Yeah.
Because we have prosecutions saying that there's a satanic altar and it's painted black and there's a tombstone in there. But again, it's like, this is a time when you can kind of zhuzh up a case by implying that satanic worship is involved. You don't have to believe in a conspiracy in order to think that you as a police officer or as a prosecutor have incentives for seeing things that, are maybe less objectively there than you would like them to be, because a room can be painted black without being a satanic altar. And I can also imagine a defendant going along with that story in order to seem just more badass in a way.
More badass and even less culpable.
Right. And less fuckwithable.
Where it's like, I was under this like evil spell.
Right. I was under a satanic trance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also like maybe he was like worshiping Satan all by himself and killed someone as part of that. But the key thing there, even if that's true, and even if the prosecution's argument about that is true, is that he was operating at most, with his girlfriend involved.
Right.
It's not part of a cult. It's not part of an organized religion. So even, in these kind of alarming examples that do sometimes pan out, it's about the crimes of individual, often men.
Yeah.
Isolated, disorganized people, as opposed to this large scale cultural takeover, which is what people really want to find evidence of.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it also really, it just had to be so often that prosecutors and police were like, ooh, I can, like you said, zhuzh this up. Maybe I need to get reelected in some way, or I, want to have the valor of bringing a Satanist in.
Right. I look better if I'm taking on Satan as opposed to just another guy who confessed for a burger.
Yeah. There's a lot of incentive for anyone in these stories to just go with the satanic cult angle for sure.
Yeah. Speaking of Ohio, here's another story I really liked. This is about the other item that article we just looked at was talking about.
Okay.
And this is the title. Actually, I'm going to send this to you and have you read some of this.
Sure. All right. Area witches express doubt of sacrifices by satanic cult.
I love that it starts with area witches.
Area Witches is a great band name.
Oh, yeah.
And this is by Roberta de Boer. The few Toledo witches who were willing to speak to the press yesterday were incredulous at the idea of up to 75 victims of Satanism buried in Spencer Township. Quote, "It worries me. There are a lot of people, very spiritual people, who are liable to get hurt from adverse publicity connecting them with this type of thing," explained a Toledo woman whose witch name is Gia. Gia engages in what she describes as earth magic. Quote, "Earth magic people feel there is a need to get back to nature, that people have misused the earth for so long," she said. Preach. Quote, "We use herbs, for example, to call on the positive forces of earth and nature. It's a positive spiritual thing." According to Loki, a male witch from Toledo who also practices earth magic. Both Gia and Loki are quick to distinguish earth magic from Satanism. Quote, "Modern-day Satanism," Gia maintained, "is just a hedonistic backlash against organized religion. It's sort of an upside-down antichrist movement." Both find it difficult to believe that any genuine satanic cult could have engaged in human sacrifice. Quote, "They do ritual sacrifice," Gia said, "but it's mostly symbolic. If it's true, it's a very freak sort of thing. It would have to be either a sick individual or a sick individual controlling a very few minds."
I love that. I love that she's like, look, if someone was doing this magically, this is how it would be playing out.
Yeah, absolutely. She's a very reasonable person. Okay, it continues. If bodies are found, she speculated that it is more likely to be the work of someone masquerading under the banner of Satanism rather than a true practicing Satanist. Quote, "They're probably a very tiny minority. I can't envision too large a group going along with what they're saying happened," she said of the cult allegations. Great point, Gia. Gia said she had heard rumors about animal mutilations, but she said no rumors of human sacrifice around Spencer Township had come to her attention. The number of practicing witches in the Toledo area is not easy to determine. Quote, "A lot of us value our privacy," Loki said. "You'd be surprised at how we can seclude ourselves, even from our mates." Okay. I don't know if he means friends or like our romantic mates, but whatever.
Mites.
Mates. God, don't make me do an accent. I can only do Southern. Okay. Quote, "It's a minority religion. Personally, I know maybe 4 dozen people. Lady Circa, once a well-known local witch and also an earth magic practitioner, moved from Toledo in 1978. Now living in Detroit, she said Toledo was a national focus of witchcraft during the late 60s and early 70s. Quote, "It was not only a center of witchcraft, but the entire Ohio Valley had one of the largest groups of psychics in the country," Lady Cirque said.
I just think that's great news.
The end. So they're really ending on like a, but what if kind of vibe.
Right?
So yeah, Sarah, what do you take away from this article? Why'd you want me to see this one?
I just like that there are witches in the time in the newspaper who are like, listen, I'm a witch and witches aren't Satanists, but also even Satanists don't do that.
Yeah.
And just being like, hey, we're the people you're talking about.
Yeah. And just hearing very reasonable, measured answers. No cackling, no mass graves of babies or anything like that. Just some people who love the earth and want to harness some of its lovelier elements to create a spirituality.
Yeah.
Sounds okay. Sounds pagan to me.
Exactly. I also have, this is that same kind of thing, but this is a letter to the editor in the Bonner County Daily Bee. This is an Idaho paper.
Okay.
On June 30th, 1992. And the headline is Witch, don't confuse witches and Satanists. And the letter writer says, I write to respond to the recent incident of cross burning at a local Sandpoint church, and specifically to the statement that the burning, quote, may be the work of witches or Satanists. Page 1, Bonner County Bee, Tuesday, June 23rd, 1992. Let me make this point very clear. Witches are not Satanists. Satanists are extremely misguided people in direct opposition to the Christian faith, often reversing liturgy or rites to act out their contempt, and are usually self-loathing and lack self-esteem. Satanists can most certainly be dangerous. Witches are not Satanists. Witches are sometimes referred to as Wicca or pagan. Wicca is the religion. Pagan is the general lay populace, so to speak. Witches believe the divine is within as well as without. Witches honor the earth as mother and honor all creatures and beings, and hold in great importance a person's right to freedom of choice, especially concerning religion. Witches do not believe in Satan. The main tenet of Wicca religion is this: harm none. A witch, therefore, would not burn a cross, let alone on church property. Witches may be involved in a variety of careers, lifestyles, and activities, and many are working to help clean up the planet as well as the neighborhood. Some activities include food banks, coats for kids, and hospice. I am a witch, and I am appalled that anyone would perpetrate such a hateful act. Pastor Barley, I am very sorry that this incident occurred at your church. Surely the persons who did this will reap their just rewards, but please do not equate witches with Satanists. We are not the same. If you or anyone else has any questions about this, please write to me. In case no one else thought of it, some people in our region who would call themselves Christian have been known to burn crosses and repeatedly and violently harass others who may not be of Anglo-Saxon descent. They say they are acting on God's word. Think about it.
Yeah.
Doreen Shababy, Clark Fork.
God, it's like, hello? Is there any other group that has been known to quite commonly burn crosses? It's like there isn't even a mention of it in the other article.
And also it's like, one of the Ohio cases, I think, is, there are reports of people in white robes on the side of the highway. And it's like, I hate to break it to you, but that could just be the Klan.
Yeah. Oh, God, I never even thought about how those two things could have been connected. Like that things that the KKK did could have been interpreted as satanic. That's really interesting.
Neither did I, but it's right there. And Doreen Shababy, I don't know if I'm saying her name right, but I want it to be pronounced that way, has a website, and she has a blog. She wrote a book on herbs, and her recent blog posts include the almond, ancient harbinger of spring. Did someone say cedar? This fish is delish. And we're crazy for spice nuts.
An early hero, like you were talking about, like those people who were on the sidelines, minor characters in all of this, pushing back.
Yeah.
Like those people are such heroes to us. So check out this blog and honor the almond because we should, because they're amazing and delicious.
She's got a recipe for raspberry flavored butter here too.
Oh my God, that sounds great.
Right? I know.
Yeah. What's the blog again?
DoreenShababy.com. We can put in a link.
All right.
Yeah.
Get out there, folks. Yeah.
And yeah, I guess that I feel like one of the great things about research is that you find those people who always throughout history have been saying, this is actually what witches do. I know that not that many of you will listen to me, but I'm at least going to give you the opportunity to ignore me.
Yeah.
And also to talk of Satanists, when people are talking about organized Satanism at this time, they're really mainly talking about the Church of Satan, which is kind of a small group. This is Anton LaVey's Satanism. They have the Satanic Bible, which if you read it, it's very short. You have no excuse for not reading it. Literally, I think within the first 10, 15 pages is like, we don't literally believe in Satan, but we believe Satan is a good symbol for, hedonism and putting yourself first. And you're like, well, there it is. That if you want to hide knowledge from people, just put it in a published book.
Yeah, exactly. A book? I couldn't possibly do that. Yeah.
I love how, as a conspiracy theorist, you're searching for the missing, untranslated, scroll that's hiding in a safe at the bottom of the ocean. And it's just in a book that they sell at Barnes and Nobles. You can see Anton LaVey, the head of his church that he invented, be like, here's what we believe.
Right.
You're welcome. I know you'll never read this.
And you just realize that so much of it is just teenage transgression.
Yeah. Or it's about shaping your violent impulses towards the idea of some big baddie out there who maybe you can worship a little bit. But if you choose to do that as an individual, that doesn't mean that Satan is winning the culture war. It means that the people who feel empowered to overcorrect by claiming Satan is winning the culture war are gearing up to win, which is exactly what happened.
Yeah, yeah. And if you're a young person, you're always looking for that way to distance yourself from the culture. It's just part of growing up. And so it's if you're growing up in the late 70s and 80s as this evangelical revival is coming up, of course you're going to love heavy metal and you're going to love these things that your parents tell you not to love and that the culture tells you not to love. And of course you're going to go spray paint symbols on the overpass and you're going to do whatever it takes to be cool in the eyes of your peers. And I think even now, with this really frightening kind of right turn of some of the younger people in our world, I just say, let's see what happens. I don't know if this is just rebellion in a form that comes from the fact that our culture, perhaps not our politics, but our culture over the last 20 years has become much more liberal. So they grew up in a much more liberal culture. This is a huge generalization, but it makes sense that there's how do we then differentiate, push back, transgress in the way that teenagers have since the invention of that age group as a culture.
Yeah. I feel like it's important to remember that teenagers don't have completely alien motivations. They don't operate in a way that's fundamentally that different from the way you were as a teenager if you're all grown up, or it's the same, accusing Satanists of kind of having a completely different idea of what human life means or what it means to experience pain, and this idea that they enjoy pain. They enjoy putting kids in coffins. They enjoy, slicing babies up with a deli meat slicer. I haven't seen any allegations of that specifically, which is shocking. But, that level of gore
easily could have fit in, though.
Right. It's I find it so telling that in this case that is sort of branded satanic in the press, and who knows what we have going on in the trailer, but where one of the elements that seems satanic to people before they know the details is, well, they cut her legs off and left them a different place in the body. And I don't think that her body was found.
Ugh, yeah.
But it turns out they did that because they wouldn't fit in the car, and that when people do even the most unspeakable things, there's usually a utilitarian explanation for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're doing it not because they have some kind of grand plan or they're operating as a foot soldier in Satan's grand plan, but because they did something that they felt like doing or they tried to better their situation, and now they're cleaning up as best they can and probably not doing a very good job.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it is like just as simple as me being a kid and going up to the Fort Worden bunkers, highly recommended. And, you know, there were these crazy cement tunnels that we would go into when I was a kid. My dad used to take me and my friend Johnny, and, you know, we would find these quote unquote like altars. It would just be like black candles, pentagram on like a slab of cement in there. And my dad would be like, oh, it's the devil worshippers. And, you know, I mean, he wasn't being serious, really. I mean, he might have thought it just in a casual way, like, yeah, it's probably some devil worshippers, because it was just part of the cultural understanding of reality, was that there were these groups, and there probably were groups of Satanists or witches or whatever, or just teenagers being like, let's get some ambiance for our weird like cement tunnel party tonight. But it was just like that easy, where it was like, when I heard that, I was like, oh, there are devil worshippers. That's something. Okay. Like, it wasn't even scary or anything like that. I was just like, okay, now I think there's devil worshippers. And then it became like Johnny and I would be walking around and we'd see like hooded teenagers and we'd be like, that's probably them. That's probably the devil worshippers. And that was the extent of it. But it was really easy for me to just like integrate that into my mind as a child as just like, yeah, of course. That makes sense. Yeah. Devil worshippers. Yeah.
Well, and I think when you just did an episode on Bloody Mary, right? And my experience with that is like going into a dark bathroom with other 6th grade girls, and then like one of us starts screaming and then everyone's screaming, you know? Yeah. And it's like, because we're all screaming, we feel like our experiences must match this like heightened state that we're in.
Absolutely. Yep.
And I think what's interesting is that you had adults who were able to sustain this illusion for as long as they did, and to keep swearing that they had seen what they couldn't possibly have seen in some cases.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so speaking of this area that gets dug up around Toledo, that the area witches are commenting on, this is an Akron Beacon Journal article about this. This is the Satanism in Ohio issue. And so this is Maureen Brown writing. And the title is Lucas County Clues Vague, which is pretty generous. Toledo, they had staked out what they believed were satanic rituals and heard chanting and screaming from a house crammed with about 100 people.
What?
This sounds like looking for Rustin Parr, you know?
Yeah.
After waiting 6 weeks to develop more information in their investigation of rumors of a satanic cult, the local sheriff said he could wait no longer and apparently wasn't finding evidence. Thursday, the eve of today's summer solstice and a cult holiday, local authorities began searching a rural area near Toledo looking for bodies. They stopped watching and began digging in a rural section of Lucas County, about 15 miles west of Toledo, for as many as 60 bodies, which they feared were sacrificed in rituals during a 16-year period. After a day of mosquito bites and digging, though, they weren't sure whether they were victims of an embarrassing hoax or on the scent of a horrifying string of occult murders. Despite suspicions that some victims included abducted children from other states, authorities didn't find any bodies Thursday in rural Spencer Township. What they did find was an odd collection of items, some of which could be cult paraphernalia. A headless doll, its feet nailed to a piece of wood holding a pentagram, a hypodermic needle and stained knife. Experts say the knife could have been a cult tool. An inverted cross with an American flag tied to the bottom, feathers and small bones, and a wire-covered area that may have protected a grave.
Wow.
In the eyes of nationally known cult expert Dale Griffiths, all of the above amounts to, quote, more and more credible evidence. What do you think about that collection of items?
Well, as somebody who loves like what I call ground scores, like things you find on the ground, and I like digging around, I like looking for human ephemera, I like going in abandoned places and rooting through all the shit I find, I would have been so thrilled to find a cross, an upside down cross with an American flag nailed onto it and a headless doll holding a pentagram. I mean, those are excellent items to find, this American ephemera.
That's true.
But, you know, I mean, it sounds like I think back to being 12 and 13 and like how I monstrously would blow things up with fireworks and create these weird charred stuffed animals after stuffing them full of like black cats and bottle rockets. And, you know, I can just see easily coming up with these items. Like I used to make the Blair Witch stick figures and hang them in random places because I thought that was a funny prank, right? So it's like these are just things that could have easily been teenagers that are like, I'm going to make this fucked up doll today and leave it somewhere as a prank or just make it for fun.
And also, like, I mean, if you're talking about a forest, like, people go to the forest to do weird stuff and also drugs, you know?
Yes.
And also in terms of the small bones and feathers, sometimes birds just die, you know?
It's true.
Sorry to break it to you.
We hate to talk about a bird dying for sure.
Another quote I love from this article is, even Lucas County Sheriff James A. Telb admitted that his 3-month investigation, quote, could be the product of somebody's imagination. And then skipping ahead a little bit, the article says, Telb's investigation grew out of the October 1982 disappearance of 7-year-old Charity Freeman of Holland, a suburb west of Toledo and a few miles from Spencer Township. Telb said she was abducted by her grandfather, Leroy Freeman, who investigators believe to be one of the cult members. So there's also this kind of strengthening of the satanic panic, as you know, where kind of the same way that if there's a serial killer in an area, there's this kind of, I think, again, very reasonable in many ways and understandable desire to attach other kind of unsolved mysteries to the one that we do have more of a handle on. So if there's kind of any unusually violent murder or strange disappearance, or especially a missing child during this period, even if there's absolutely nothing to suggest that it's related to anything satanic, if you're already scared, you get this illusion that it's creating, you know, that you're seeing evidence of the theory that you already believe in, even if it's just an unrelated scary thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, in like a much bigger sense, what's always been interesting to me about the satanic panic is like, if we look at it in like political terms, sort of, you can think of it as like atrocity propaganda, right? It's like attaching the worst acts, the most sensationalized acts, the worst things you could actually imagine to like a societal outgroup. And normally, I mean, if we think of it in modern day, we think about immigrants or trans people or Palestinian people, like these people who are demonized through this atrocity propaganda that paints them into the monstrous, into something you need to fight against because they are just so evil in some way. But like, if you look at the satanic panic, it's less like, because Satanists aren't really a real outgroup.
Right.
But what it almost feels like is, instead of it being atrocity propaganda to create a scapegoat out of a subgroup of people, you are creating the scapegoat to alleviate the blame on the in-group, if that makes sense, right? Like,
so it gets to be this totally imaginary sort of scapegoat figure, and then anyone who is convenient, you get to push into that because you don't, because you're not really profiling based on kind of ethnicity or sexuality or socioeconomic status. But what's nice is that if you take anybody, you can find kind of a reason why they're an outsider and that would have made them more vulnerable to a legal proceeding anyway, you know? And then that can be proof that they're satanic.
Yeah. Yeah. And then if they're satanic, then we don't have to investigate further. It's like, you can just be like, oh, that person's a Satanist. We don't have to think about like the other things that they are and how, you know, maybe masculinity was a factor or poverty was a factor in a certain murder or a certain situation. You know, you don't have to think about either the individual that did it or the systems that created the conditions that something bad happened within.
Yeah. And it all turns into a parable of good and evil.
Totally. Absolutely.
Well, so let me just read you the conclusion to this article, which is that they not only dug up a site, but they also searched a house next to the digging site where, you know, some people lived who were not happy about it. There was a couple, Pat and Alvin Litton. And so remember, the grandfather of the abducted girl is named Leroy Freeman. And so in the article, Mrs. Litton says, quote, she believes the deputies responded only to Freeman's resemblance to Mrs. Litton's father-in-law, 65-year-old Irwin Litton. So her husband's dad looks like a guy who is a suspect in a child abuse case from a couple of years ago at this point. According to a copy of the search warrant given to the Littons, the authorities were searching for the following: Freeman, described as a fugitive from justice, deadly weapons, marijuana and other drugs, can't sacrifice kids without pot, and ceremonial robes and other cult paraphernalia, which are evidence in a child stealing investigation. Alvin Litton, 37, a truck driver, said police and deputies took military dog tags belonging to him and his father, a Bible, posters, a round piece of wood, and some cassette tape recordings. But the Bible and the dog tags is what got to me, he said. I can't believe they drag Uncle Sam in on this. Jeez. Litton said he was distressed that the deputies did not explain their actions. Quote, they don't explain nothing, they just take, he said. That's a good folk song title or chorus.
Yeah, it is.
He said authorities were particularly interested in a 5 by 8 foot hole that he had dug at the rear of his house. Litton said it was a footer for a family room that he was adding to his house. So I think this is also a great article because in some pretty subtle ways, it kind of injects these chilling little details of like, oh, no, this is not good. We're making stuff up.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. Oof.
So in conclusion, one of the reasons the Satanic Panic was able to keep going for so long is that if you're primed, then you can see evidence of Satanism in almost any house you search, I think.
Yeah.
And also that I think it depended a lot on the disposition of whoever was working for the DA's office or the local police.
Yeah. Ugh, God. What a time. It just feels like everything was so out of control. Like the wheels had just really fallen off.
Not like now.
No, not like now.
You know, one thing I like now, though, is that I do think that mainstream news has gotten better. It has way less money and way less power.
Yeah.
But that you don't find articles today that just kind of openly accuse people of Satanism all the time. And I think that's nice.
Yeah. And believe in the supernatural. Yeah.
Right. Where it's like based on this basic belief that the average person reading the news and writing it is an extremely superstitious Christian.
Yeah. 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 And I mean, I don't know. It's like I always get to the end and I'm like, but I don't know. I still don't understand it completely.
Yeah.
But I think we get closer every time we talk about it, really.
Yeah. Well, and also just, as we live through another one of these, I would say to people just like, it's okay that we can't stop it from happening on a large scale. That's not our role as individuals. Our role is to mitigate and to share our truth as we can and give people the option to listen or to ignore us, but at least they have the ability to decide. And to offer support for the people we know and love who are also being scapegoated by a bunch of idiots.
Yeah. Just be your small voice. Just be one of the people that wrote into the editor to say, hey, I'm a witch and I don't believe in this violence that you guys think is happening, or, hey, this violence you think is happening isn't really happening, but maybe there's a different group that you might want to consider to blame for all of your pain in this world.
Yeah.
Write a letter to the editor. Be that witch.
Be that witch. Be the witch you wish to see in the world. I would also recommend, by the way, there's a book that came out just a couple years ago by Jack Legg, which is specifically about Satan in Ohio. The title is Digging Up Devils, The Search for a Satanic Murder Cult in Rural Ohio.
Wow.
I know.
Yep. Well, is there anything else, Sarah, that you want to get into?
No, I'm happy to be here. And Chelsey, I'm so happy that you're doing the work that you are. And I just love to share this silly land with you. It makes me happy.
I love it so much, Sarah. And I cannot tell you all how much I am digging this podcast, The Devil You Know. So yeah, just make sure that you go. If you're not listening, I feel like a lot of you are listening, but if you're not listening, pop over.
A lot of you are like, could I be any more listening?
Right, just smash that subscribe button. And yeah, I love hearing the human side of a story that I've thought of in human terms so much, but it really takes on a new dimension when you talk to the people whose lives were touched in smaller yet extremely significant ways. So I thank you so much for doing this work and keeping this conversation alive and giving all these folks a chance to tell their truth, because I imagine it's cathartic in a way. I would hope it's
I hope so.
Something you held on to for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. And they all, everyone who I talked to was just really just wonderful, you know? And I feel like it's a great honor to just be able to learn from them, you know? And thank you so much, Chelsey. And I can't wait to come back for whatever we talk about next time.
Yeah, let's say hail Wiccans.
Hail Wiccans. Hail the raspberry butter.
Yeah, go get some of that.
Doreen Shababy.
This was American Hysteria. Make sure you go right now and subscribe to The Devil You Know, wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to support our show, and we can always use your support, you can go to patreon.com/American Hysteria or subscribe on Apple Plus. You'll get ad-free episodes as well as bonus content like Hysteria Home Companion, the other podcast that I make with our producer Miranda, where we tell you stories related to the topics that we cover and stories we just know that you'll love. And you'll hear a lot more about our personal lives as well. That's patreon.com/American Hysteria or subscribe on Apple Plus. If you go to AmericanHysteria.com, you can pick up some of our merch. All of the profits go to the Samir Project, a Palestinian-led mutual aid group who are on the ground in Gaza delivering food and aid to displaced families. You can also leave us a message on the Urban Legends hotline at AmericanHysteria.com about a tale that you remember from growing up or one that you've heard recently, and we might do an entire investigation about it. You can follow us on Instagram at American Hysteria Podcast, and if you're feeling generous, leave us a 5-star review on whatever app you use. It really helps us out. American Hysteria's producer and editor is Miranda Zickler. Our associate producer is Riley Swedelius Smith. This episode has additional editing by AJ McKinley, and I'm your host, Chelsey Weber Smith. Thanks, as always, for listening, and I hope you have a great week.